Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Think of football like a global language, but just like any language, it's got these wildly distinct, really rich dialects. Today, we're taking a cinematic, data-driven look straight into the tactical DNA of Europe's top 5 football leagues. We're going to completely strip away the highlights, look right past the usual punditry, and examine the raw mechanics of how the beautiful game is actually played at the highest level. Okay, let's dive right into this. So, here is the massive central question we're exploring today. Does geography actually still dictate how we score goals? I mean, in an era of ultimate globalization, where managers and superstars cross borders every single transfer window, you'd probably think European football would have just homogenized into one uniform style by now, right? But that couldn't be further from the truth. Each league stubbornly retains a really unique, highly evolved tactical fingerprint. Think of today's explainer as sort of a league selection menu, kind of like choosing different meta strategies and loadouts in a football video game. First up, the Big Five tactical meta. Then we'll tear into the Premier League's direct intensity, the Bundesliga's evolving press, La Liga's vertical shift, Serie A's tactical mastery, and finally, Ligue 1's pragmatic play. All right, Section 1, the Big Five tactical meta. Let's unlock the academic data. To really understand these playstyles, we can't just rely on the eye test. We need hard, definitive academic data. So we're pulling from this massive Frontiers in Psychologist study that analyzed 10 whole seasons. We're talking about over 18,000 matches and nearly 50,000 goals. To put that into perspective, that sheer scale proves we're looking way past the scoreline and into the actual, undeniable mechanics of how these leagues operate. Moving right along to Section 2, the Premier League direct intensity. When it comes to set pieces, the Premier League's dominance is, well, it's absolute. They average significantly more goals from corners per game than Serie A or Ligue 1. Now, why is that? The researchers point directly to the superior, super aggressive heading ability of English defenders. It's really a hallmark of the intense physical nature of the English game, where center backs are practically offensive weapons in the box. Honestly, this is exactly why flipping on a Premier League match on a Saturday morning feels so beautifully chaotic compared to a highly calculated Sunday Serie A game. Looking at the broader stats card, yeah, there's high direct play and corner dominance. But oddly enough, they also rack up the most own goals. It's a hilariously unfortunate but very real byproduct of that tough, chaotic marking and rapid pace. Oh, and surprisingly, they have the lowest penalty rate among the Big Five. The data suggests this isn't because players aren't tackling in the box, because refereeing in England is notoriously more lenient. They just let a much more physical game flow. Okay, Section 3, the Bundesliga and evolving the press. To understand the Bundesliga, you first got to understand gegenpressing. That's the immediate recovery of possession right after losing the ball, ideally within just 6 seconds. This was the pure heavy metal football of the early 2010s, championed by managers like Jurgen Klopp and Ralf Rangnick. It gave us this incredibly transition-heavy, high-scoring, chaotic division that totally captivated the world. But, tactics evolve. That lung-busting, injury-risking pure press of the past simply wasn't sustainable over a grueling 34-game season plus European fixtures. Teams were literally burning out. So we've seen a shift to a modern hybrid possession system. Heavily influenced by Pep Guardiola's time at Bayern Munich, teams are now blending targeted pressing with deep possession. Look at Xabi Alonso's unbeaten Leverkusen side, for example. They utilized a highly structured 3-2-5 attacking shape to maintain control, basically using possession self as a defensive tool to dictate the tempo. And the data backs this up perfectly. Just look at this number right here, 14. This is the recent average for passes per defensive action, or PPDA, in the Bundesliga. A decade ago, that number was sitting way down around 8 to 10. A higher number just means teams are allowing the opposition more passes before they intervene. So they're pressing less frantically, conserving energy, and prioritizing highly organized positional traps instead of just swarming the ball like crazy. Yet, despite this whole evolution to possession, the Bundesliga still holds its crown in one beautifully chaotic metric. They completely dominate Europe in fast break counterattack goals, averaging 0.15 per game. That is significantly higher than La Liga or Serie A. Why? Well, because the league is still inherently physical, and attacking fullbacks regularly push super high up the pitch. That leaves vast defensive zones completely empty for opponents to exploit on the break in punishing fashion. Moving to Section 4, La Liga and the vertical shift. For years, La Liga was globally synonymous with tiki-taka, right? Patient, horizontal short passing, and just absolute technical control. But a fundamental evolution is happening right now. The identity is shifting away from that purely patient buildup and moving towards modern verticality driven by incredibly aggressive attacking fullbacks. So what does that actually look like in the numbers? Spanish fullbacks now execute the most passes, crosses, and touches in the attacking zone across all top leagues. Because they're pushed so high up, La Liga actually records the highest proportion of throw-in goals. Yes, throw-in goals. I mean, who would have thought? But there's a trade-off here. Just like in Germany, vacating the midfield and defensive zones makes them vulnerable. And that is exactly why La Liga ranks second in Europe for counterattack goals conceded.
All right, Section 5, Serie A, Tactical Mastery.
There's this really old assumption that Serie A is primarily defensive and just uses the counterattack to win games. But the academic data completely destroys the old Catenaccio myth. Serie A is actually perfectly in the middle of the pack for counterattacks compared to its European peers. They aren't just sitting back with 10 men behind the ball. Instead, Italian football is completely defined by tactical mastery and structural fluidity. This is perfectly exemplified by Antonio Conte's inescapable 3-5-2 blueprint. This setup uses dynamic twin strikers to pull defenders out of position and advancing wingbacks to create wide overloads that literally paralyze opposition setups. Supported by a deep midfield pivot, often operating as a regista, a deep-lying playmaker dictating the tempo from the back, this formation can seamlessly shift into a defensive 5-3-2 or an attacking 4-3-3, depending on the exact phase of play. It's like a giant puzzle. So, the crucial point is how this tactical intelligence manifests in the penalty box. Check out this metric, 0.123. That's the average number of penalty goals per game in Serie A, which is significantly higher than the Premier League. And this is no accident. It really showcases their intricate penalty box maneuvers. They're drawing fouls through highly calculated close-quarters tactical intelligence, rather than just brute force. And finally, Section 6, League 1, Pragmatic Play. Across the early time periods of matches, League 1 consistently shows the weakest scoring ability among the top 5 leagues. But this points directly to a strict culture of pragmatic play. Teams in France heavily prioritize pressing, tight defensive structures, and rapid vertical transitions over chaotic, high-risk offensive football. It's a highly athletic, but distinctly cautious tactical meta. And this brings us to our synthesis. One sport, 5 distinct play styles. Even though the transfer market is completely globalized and the top players and managers rotate across these borders every single year, the local tactical cultures remain fiercely, wonderfully distinct on the pitch. You've got the Premier League's direct aerial threat, Germany's controlled transition chaos, Spain's vertical fullbacks, Italy's tactical chess matches, and France's defensive pragmatism. Which leaves us with this to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. As tactical innovations continue to bleed across borders, which league's tactical meta will ultimately define the next decade of European football? Are we going to see a new hybrid emerge, or will one of these 5 distinct DNA strands just conquer all the rest? Keep an eye on the pitch and the data to find out. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer.